Chapter 20 of the Bobbsey Twins at Snow Lodge by Laura Lee Hope. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please go to LibriVox.org. The Big Storm. For a moment they all looked at one another by turns. Flossie and Freddie showed the most alarm. Bert started for the outside door as though intending to make a search for his pet. Mr. Bobbsey questioned Dinah. "Are you sure," he asked, "that Snap isn't around?" "I sure am sure," she replied. "I done called him to get something to eat, and when Snap won't come for that, he ain't around." "That's so," said Mrs. Bobbsey. "I wonder if he could have followed after us and gotten lost. Did any of you see him trailing us?" "He did come a little way when we started," came from Dorothy. "Yes, but Dinah called him back, didn't you?" asked Nan of the cook. "Yes, missus, that's what I did, and Snap come. Den, to make sure he wouldn't sneak up and follow you all, I shut him up in the kitchen and gave him a chicken bone. After a while I let him out. He run around, kind of disappointed like, and came back. Den I didn't look for him until a little while ago, but he was gone, and I thought maybe after all he'd gone with you." "No, he didn't," said Mr. Bobbsey with a shake of his head, "but we'll have a look around." With Bert and Harry he went outside, but neither calling nor whistling brought back any bark from Snap. Nor did he come bounding joyfully up as he usually did when summoned. The darkness about Snow Lodge was quiet. There was no sign of Snap. "He's gone off in the woods and is lost," said Harry. "Snap knows better than to get lost," declared Bert. "He could find his way home from almost anywhere. I think he must have followed someone away." "Would he do that?" asked Harry. "He might with someone he knew, if that person petted him," said Mr. Bobbsey. "That hunter, Henry Burdock!" suddenly exclaimed Bert. "Snap made good friends with him when we met him out in the woods the other day, and Henry said he'd make a fine hunting dog." "I don't believe Henry Burdock would entice our dog away," said Mr. Bobbsey, with a shake of his head. "Oh, of course I didn't mean on purpose," said Bert, "but Snap might have been running about in the woods at dusk when he met Henry. Then he might have followed him, for Snap is part hunting dog, and he gets crazy when he sees a gun. Maybe he followed Henry and wouldn't be driven back through the snow." "Maybe that's so," agreed Mr. Bobbsey. "In that case Snap will be all right, and we can get him in the morning, so don't worry any more." They went back in the lodge to find Freddie and Flossie almost in tears. But the little twins felt better when it was explained to them that Snap might, after all, be safe with the young hunter. "And will you get him first thing in the morning?" asked Freddie. The following day was so nice that Flossie and Freddie were allowed to go with Bert, Nan, Harry, and Dorothy to the cabin of Henry Burdock to look for Snap. The small twins were put on 2 sleds, the older children taking turns pulling them. They easily found Henry's cabin, having been there several times since the night they spent in it. The hunter was just about to start off on a trip. "Where's Snap?" called Bert eagerly. "Snap? I haven't seen him since that day I met you with him in the woods," answered the hunter. "What? He isn't here?" asked Harry. Then they told of the missing dog, but Henry Burdock had not seen him. "Where can he be?" spoke Nan wonderingly. Flossie and Freddie began to cry. "Oh, a bear has Snap!" wailed Flossie. "No, he hasn't," declared Bert. "We'll find him." "But where can he be?" said Dorothy. "Is there anyone else around here who might take him?" Bert and Nan thought of the same thing at the same time. "Danny Rugg!" they exclaimed. "What do you mean?" asked Henry Burdock. "He's a mean boy who is camping with his father near us," exclaimed Bert. "Harry and I pelted him good with snowballs the other day after he bothered us. I think he has enticed Snap away." "Would your dog go with him?" "Yes, he's friendly with Danny, for sometimes Danny is fairly good and comes to our house. If he offered Snap a nice bone, our dog might go with him." "Then I advise you to go have a look over where Danny is camping," said the young hunter. It was quite a trip back to Snow Lodge and then over to the Rugg lumber camp, and Mrs. Bobbsey thought it was too far to take Flossie and Freddie, so they were left behind on the second trip, Nan and Dorothy going with Bert and Harry. They saw Danny Rugg standing in front of a log cabin which was on the edge of the lumber camp. The bully seemed uneasy at the sight of Harry and Bert and called out, If you're coming over here to make trouble, I'll tell my father on you. He's right over there." "We're not going to make trouble, Danny Rugg, if you don't," said Bert slowly. "But we came for Snap, our dog." "I don't know anything about your dog," answered Danny in surly tones. "I think you do," said Bert quietly. Then, raising his voice, he called, "Snap! Snap! Where are you, old fellow? Snap!" There was a moment of silence, and then from a small cabin some distance away came loud barks. "There, Snap! That's our dog!" cried Nan joyfully, and at the sound of her voice the barking grew louder. They could also hear the rattling of a chain. "You've got him tied, Danny Rugg!" cried Bert angrily. "Let him go at once, or I'll hit you." "Don't you dare touch me!" cried the bully, "and you get off our land." "Not until I get my dog," said Bert firmly. He started for the cabin where the dog was, but Danny stepped in front of him. Bert shoved Danny to one side, and just then Mr. Rugg came up. "Hey! What does this mean?" he asked. "Bert Bobbsey, you here?" "Yes, sir. I came after my dog. Danny has him tied up." "Danny, is this so?" asked Mr. Rugg, who knew some of his son's mean ways, and had tried in vain to break him of them. "Have you Bert's dog?" "Well, maybe it's his dog. It was dark when he followed me home last night, and I tied him in that shack." "I guess he wouldn't have followed you if you hadn't coaxed him," said Bert. "Well, I couldn't drive him back," went on Danny, but the Bobbseys believed that he had deliberately coaxed Snap off to make trouble. "Let the dog out at once," said Mr. Rugg to his son, and Danny had to do so, though he was angry and sullen over it. How Snap leaped about his master and mistress and their cousins! How delightfully he barked! And his tail wagged to and fro so fast that it looked like two tails, as Freddie said afterwards. "Poor Snap," said Bert as he patted his pet. "And so you were tied up all night. It was a mean trick," and his eyes flashed at Danny, who looked on sneeringly. "I am sorry for this, Bert," said Mr. Rugg. "If I had known Danny enticed your dog away I would have made him bring it back. Now I'm going to punish him. You go back home today, Danny." Danny felt badly, of course, but it served him right. The Bobbseys and their cousins lost no time for getting back to Snow Lodge with Snap, who was hugged so much by Flossie and Freddie that Dinah said: "Good land of massy! Dat dog must be most starved, and yo' loving him so dat he ain't got time to eat a sandwich. Let him have some breakfast, and den hug him." "Oh, but we like him so!" cried Flossie. So Snap was restored, and Danny was sent home out of the woods so there was no more trouble from him. In the days that followed, the Bobbsey twins at Snow Lodge had many more good times. They made snow forts and had snow battles. They made big snowmen and threw snowballs at them, and went on sleigh rides or skated and ice boated and played around generally to their heart's content. Occasionally the two older boys went on long tramps with Henry Burdock as he visited his traps. They invited him to come to Snow Lodge, but he said, "No, I'm never coming there until I can prove to my uncle that I never touched his money. Then I'll come." One day when Bert and Harry had been in the woods with the young hunter, he said to them, "Don't go far away from Snow Lodge tomorrow, boys." "Why not?" asked Bert. "Because I think we're in for a big storm, and you might easily get lost again. Unless I'm mistaken, it's going to snow hard before morning." Henry Burdock proved a true weather prophet, for when the Bobbseys and the other got up the next morning the ground was covered with a mantle of newly fallen snow, and more was sifting down from the clouds. The wind, too, was blowing fiercely. "It's going to be a bad storm," said Mr. Bobbsey, looking out after breakfast. "Luckily we have plenty of wood and plenty to eat." The wind howled around Snow Lodge while the white flakes came down thicker and faster. "Maybe we'll be snowed in," said Nan. "That would be fun!" cried Bert. End of chapter 20. Read by Katie Caselli in Apex, North Carolina.